Look at them all their balaclavas on. Mate.
For doing this, heads must roll. There is no way.
Sense of duty, to be honest. Sense of duty to my country.
Yeah.
When I think about what our ancestors went through to protect this country, yeah, like most of the other Patriots, not pleased the way it's going.
Yeah.
And it's time to take a stand.
What do you think the main issues are at the moment?
I think there's several. I think obviously immigration is one. I think there's the breakdown of the family, the breakdown of a lot of societal norms that I think, you know, give society a lot of stability.
Yep.
You know, I think that there's a growing disparity between the have-nots and the haves.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's quite a multifaceted. It's a hydra with many heads.
Yeah. And what do you think should be done about it?
Well, I think the first thing is we need to get rid of the globalist government. That's one of the first things that we need to do. We need to almost start again. And the biggest thing of that is actually we need to return to our Christian roots.
I mean, I came over on a boat.
You came over on a boat?
Ireland. I'm from Ireland, I came over on a boat.
Okay.
And we went to work when we got here. We didn't leave off the country. And this is going on, this president. I can understand why people are really upset. You know? And it's not about being racist.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm Irish myself, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And what do you think the issues are then?
It's just get rid of Keir Starmer and you'll have no issues.
Okay.
Get rid of him. He's just not, he's not good for the country. Letting all this happen. It's just not, I'm not saying it shouldn't be held. Of course it should be held. But the way they're going about it is not right.
Admitted escorting pro-migrant protesters to an asylum hotel before violence erupted last week. Essex Police had initially denied its officers had brought demonstrators from Stand Up to Racism to the Bell Hotel in Epping before clashes with anti-migrant protesters on Sunday.
Thousands poured into Birmingham, transforming the city's streets into a sea of flags, chants and determination. Union Jacks and St George's crosses filled the skyline as waves of ordinary Britons, many of whom had remained silent for years, stepped forward to make their presence felt. This was no ordinary protest. It was one of the most visible, unapologetic shows of defiance the United Kingdom has seen in recent years, with entire blocks lined by families, workers and retirees standing shoulder to shoulder in unison. It was not merely a gathering, it was a declaration. Men and women from every age group and walk of life, some travelling from hundreds of miles away, converged on the city to voice a growing belief that their concerns had been pushed aside for far too long. Their chants carried through Birmingham city centre, targeting Keir Starmer's government and demanding the release of Tommy Robinson, a name now tied to a broader anger about censorship, government overreach and a political class many here view as disconnected from the country's struggles. This was not a weekend spectacle that would fade by Monday morning. It was a surge of energy, a sound that reflected a public that feels cornered and ignored.
On the same day as Nigel Farage is talking about lawlessness and criminality and the things that people really worry about, and he says this, right, when he's asked about whether or not there's anywhere to put illegal migrants.
Just a big pinpoint before. What other accommodation precisely are you planning to take over to provide temporary accommodation for families?
Oh, there's lots of housing in many local authorities that can be used, and we're identifying where it can be used. But I mean, look.
Sorry, could you give us? Have you got any examples you can give us?
No, but I'll write in and give you details.
Because I could say certainly in a number of our local authorities, I'm already picking up from around the table, there isn't a lot of spare housing available. If there were, councils would be able to be dealing with it by now.
Well, exactly.
For those marching, this was about something deeper than party loyalty or political ideology. It was about reclaiming rights they feel have been slowly chipped away, the freedom to speak openly without fear of reprisal, the expectation of fairness in a system they increasingly see as tilted toward the elite, and the preservation of British traditions they believe are vanishing under new policies and cultural shifts. Among the crowd, conversations revealed a deep distrust of the mainstream media, seen by many as complicit in filtering or twisting the truth, and growing resentment toward a justice system perceived as protecting those in power while punishing dissent. By the time night fell, Birmingham had become more than a city hosting a demonstration. It had become a symbol of a broader movement, one no longer confined to isolated communities or social media circles. The quiet frustration that had built for years erupted into something that could not be ignored. It sent a message not just to Downing Street, but to every corner of the country. Patience is wearing thin, and the ruling class is scrambling to maintain control. For many here, this is only the beginning, a chapter in a much larger fight that is now spreading beyond Birmingham and into the heart of Britain itself.
Visit from Narendra Modi, the Indian Prime Minister, who turned up a couple of days ago, announcing a great big trade deal which appears to do nothing but really help Indian workers and Indian companies who want to come to this country and get preferential rates on tax and preferential rates on national insurance. Meanwhile, the state of the union, as it were, in America, as they call it, is all happening in Epping. And, I spoke to somebody down there a few days ago, a mother who was one of the peaceful demonstrators, and I said, what's your message to Keir Starmer? And she said, just come down and see us, send Yvette Cooper, or you come down and see us, so you can understand what we're upset about, what the problem is. Last night, the council voted to basically remove all the migrants from the hotel and to shut the hotel down. They haven't got the power to do it. The government does. But this is a real problem, isn't it, for Starmer?
Yeah, totally. And it's a problem because it's just so visible. Especially small town communities have seen a hotel, which might have been the mainstay of their community. They might have had weddings there. They might go there for Sunday lunch. And they've seen it taken over by the Home Office to house asylum seekers who get everything handed to them on a plate, free bed and board.
Across towns like Watford and Rochdale, a grim reality lingers in the air. One that has shattered countless families and left deep scars on entire communities. For years, organised grooming gangs have prowled these streets, preying on vulnerable English girls, exploiting, abusing and trafficking them while the very people entrusted to protect this country looked away. Generations of young women have seen their innocence stolen and futures destroyed, all while those in power seemed more concerned with avoiding uncomfortable headlines than protecting the vulnerable. The crimes themselves are horrific. But what cuts deepest is the silence that followed. The outrage felt by those who march is not just about what these gangs have done, but about the deliberate cover-ups that followed. Time after time, local authorities, police forces and politicians have buried the truth, fearing that speaking out might fracture the carefully constructed image of multicultural harmony they prize so highly. To the ruling class, acknowledging these atrocities is inconvenient. To the families living with the trauma, silence is betrayal. And it is that betrayal, more than anything, that fuels the anger seen in Birmingham's streets. Those who came to march reject the idea that this devastation is an unavoidable price for so-called diversity. They see it as a failed experiment, one where the cost has been borne by ordinary Britons, while those who pushed the policies remain insulated from the consequences. Their demands are straightforward. England must protect its daughters, predators must face justice, and those who enabled or ignored these crimes must finally be held to account. To them, there can be no excuses left, no more platitudes about community cohesion while young lives are being torn apart.
How awful for the Chancellor that he couldn't confirm that she would stay in place. Yeah. He talks about this year in office. This week marks the first anniversary of Labour coming into office. And yes. The whips can't get them in the lobbies, but they can get them to cheer at the right time. Yeah. The fact is, his own MPs are saying this government is, and I quote, incoherent and shambolic. That's Liverpool Wavertree that said that. I could go on and on. But the fact is, it's been mistake after mistake after mistake. There is no plan to get people into work. There is no plan to cut the welfare budget. There is no strategy. There is just a series of humiliating U-turns like Winterfield, like grooming gangs. Mr. Speaker, what's really shocking is that every other party in this House voted for even more welfare spending yesterday. Yes, those MPs behind him and the Lib Dems and Reform. The Conservative Party believes that this country needs to live within its means. We know what we believe, Mr. Speaker, but this is a Prime Minister who has U-turned on everything he's done in office, including his own speeches, because he doesn't know what he believes. With left-wing Labour MPs now running the government, isn't it working people who will now pay the price?
That anger does not end with grooming gangs. Across Britain's cities, the scars of terrorism remain fresh and raw. The names of places like Manchester, London Bridge and Westminster Bridge still echo with grief, each one a reminder of the nights and mornings when markets, streets and concert halls turned into scenes of horror. Families were left broken, and a generation of Britons was left questioning whether their home still feels like their own country. The 22 young lives lost at the Ariana Grande concert in Manchester remain etched in public memory. They were just children and teenagers out to enjoy music, but they never made it back home. For those marching, tragedies like these are no longer rare shocks. They have become part of a pattern, proof that the government and its security services have failed to defend their own people. The chants that rose through Birmingham carried no polite appeals or patient pleas. They demanded immediate, decisive action. They called for foreign extremists and their networks to be rooted out entirely, for threats to be dismantled with zero hesitation, and for Britain to stop pretending that those who bring violence to its streets have any right to remain here. For many in the march, this is no longer a matter of policy debates or cultural arguments. It feels like survival. They watch their streets turn dangerous, they watch their families live in fear, and they see their leaders act as though the threat is a natural part of modern life. To them, this acceptance is intolerable, and they refuse to stand still while waiting for another bombing or another stabbing to take more lives. Beyond the attacks that dominate national headlines, there is a quieter but equally brutal crisis that bleeds through Britain's streets daily. Young English men and women are being cut down in broad daylight, victims of knife crime and senseless assault. What was once considered shocking has become so frequent that news outlets barely keep up. Entire communities, particularly in London, live under the shadow of fear as stabbings erupt on busy streets. Families bury teenagers, and police statistics turn into nothing more than cold numbers. For those in Birmingham, these acts of violence are not isolated crimes, but symptoms of something deeper. They see the bloodshed as the inevitable result of years of open-door immigration policies and a justice system that too often releases offenders back into the same neighbourhoods they terrorised. To them, this is not just a crime wave, it is a quiet war, fought one life at a time, as their communities are hollowed out and fear replaces trust. The polished speeches about diversity and cultural enrichment ring hollow to these crowds. They see the reality as destruction, not enrichment, and believe it is happening by design, not by accident. As chants echoed through the city, one phrase rose above the rest: Britain will not bow. It was not a slogan crafted by politicians or campaign strategists, but a line shouted from the throats of people who feel their country slipping away. The message was unflinching. Those who bring chaos, those who harm Britain's sons and daughters, will face consequences, whether through deportation, exile, or harsher means. By the end of the day, it became clear the march in Birmingham was far more than a protest. It was a warning shot, aimed squarely at those in power. Thousands of ordinary citizens, draped in the flags of their country, stood together to make it known that the era of quiet frustration is over. These were not professional activists or fringe groups. They were workers, parents, young adults and retirees united by a simple conviction: they will no longer watch their country unravel while remaining silent. For years, Britain's majority has been told to stay quiet, to accept the erosion of safety, culture and tradition as the cost of so-called progress. But in Birmingham, that silence shattered. The streets became a chorus of demands for accountability, justice, and the restoration of values they see as the backbone of their nation. What took place was not the conclusion of a movement, but its ignition. Other cities are expected to rise. More streets will fill with voices unwilling to be ignored. And for the establishment, the warning could not be clearer. These crowds are not dispersing, they are organising. They are preparing to march again and again, pressuring every level of government until action replaces excuses. If Britain's leaders will not defend their people, the people are making it clear they are willing to carry that burden themselves. And for those watching, the choice could not be clearer. Stay silent, watch from the sidelines and accept a Britain that no longer feels like home, or stand with those demanding a future where British families can walk their streets without fear. where their children are safe and where their voices are no longer ignored. This movement is not fading. It is only in its infancy. And every march, every rally, and every voice added to it pushes the country closer to a turning point. For many, Birmingham was a wake-up call. The next cities will be louder, larger, and harder for those in power to dismiss. The questions being asked now will not go away, and the people demanding answers will not be silenced. Where do you stand in all of this? Do you believe Britain's future should be shaped by those who ignore these growing crises, or by those willing to confront them head-on? Share your thoughts below and make sure you subscribe so you do not miss what is coming next. This is not the end of the story. It is chapter 1 in a movement that could redefine the nation's future.